happened since we got a chance to meet with the APAC region a month ago, and then dive into any questions you may have as well. So just a quick reminder that this occurrence will be the second Wednesday of every month from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we're looking forward to getting your feedback. In the interim, if you do have questions or items that come up that you want to discuss with the Semantic Kernel team, we monitor GitHub discussions very closely. We go in and triage them every day. And so if there is anything in between the session that comes up, feel free to use that as well. We have some other development office hours for Python and Java that are a bit out of time zone for this region, but just wanted to let everyone know if you do have counterparts in other time zones who'd be interested in attending. And then just want to go through a couple of announcements with the team. I see we have Danny on as well, but we have a great case study that's out with Preezy that we have now released. Has a lot of great video interviews with the team and going through their AI journey. And so if you haven't had a chance to take a look, I'd recommend it. I'll go ahead and put the links to these in chat in a minute once I'm done sharing as well for the blog. And then the second one that kind of dovetails in is our documentation update. We have a blog announcing that as well, but we've gone through to really categorize by different concepts and to be able to have the building blocks starting with Asian and being able to learn from there as well. And so if you haven't had a chance to look into our docs, do. There are still some updates that we're going through as well, but we're looking forward to getting your feedback. So if you have any questions, thoughts on it, feel free to give us feedback. And then the one other item I want to highlight to the group since we met last month is our roadmap and coming up of some of the areas of focus. And so we're really focusing on agents, getting that finalized. It's still an experimental right now. There's a couple other key areas as well. So if you're interested, it's a good place to go through that as well. And with that, I will turn it over to questions everyone has and put those links in the window as well.
A quick question. I worked on not worked on, but I engaged the Discord community for Semantic Kernel and kernel memory quite a bit. So I just wanted to know, anything official, does it need to go through GitHub or can we just go through the Discord community?
So how we're really looking at the two is for Discord, it's really for customer interactions. It's managed more from back and forth with customers, sharing what they're working on, tips and tricks. We're really monitoring as a team GitHub discussions because we can really easily create issues, be able to track, and then close out conversations and be able to have that clear thread within. So as a team, we're really focused on GitHub. If you do want something to get responded to by the Semantic Kernel team, I'd recommend using GitHub discussions, but Discord isn't going anywhere. It's just going to be more focused on those customer to customer engagements. You were mentioning memory in particular. I know that Davis is pretty active in Discord as well at times.
All right, thank you.
Just like build on what Sophia was saying, like we have like daily triages on our issues and discussions to make sure that they're answered on GitHub. And the other really nice thing, selfishly, is Discord is not Google searchable, but GitHub is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
And so yeah, the more you put content there, the more likely it'll help other folks. So from a just helping other people out, it's a great place to do that.
Is there
Certainly.
anything in particular that you brought up in GitHub discussions that you would want us to chat about now?
No, I haven't. I just had a few random Q&A kind of stuff on the Discord. That's all. I was just sort of wondering.
Got it. Okay. Great. Other questions folks may have?
Guess it's related to probably roadmap question. I think.
Hey,
so.
sorry, I have a quick question on the on chat history. So with chat history, we're storing chat history in Cosmos. Is it best to store the chat history as one blob in Cosmos or as a different different record each time? If I'm explaining myself.
Yes. I, I think it depends on how you expect your chat histories to, what the life cycle of your chat histories are. If they're pretty small, like storing it as like one gigantic record will probably help with read performance. So it's someone
Right.
with more of an engineering background, tell me if I'm wrong. But if these things get large, I know we keep getting requests from customers on like providing more helper logic to like summarize and prune and make smaller your chat histories. In that world where you have like an infinite chat and these things run forever long, yeah, you want different records for them. Most solutions though that I've seen today, you'd probably be best served with just a single record for the entire chat history.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Daniel
Yeah,
Vic.
yeah. That's a good point about partition key. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Daniel.
I am
what
not
is
a
your partition
composer.
key? What do you
Sorry?
use as your what do you actually use as your partition key? Is it a
Uh,
you use a conversation ID?
yeah, yeah. So we I think we're using a topic ID as the partition key.
As long as you're avoiding cross partition queries, you
Yeah.
I mean it'll come down to RUs. It'll all come down to RUs for the query to retrieve. Are you doing anything like caching? Because you presumably from a you're going to have your orchestrator, which is managing and maintaining the conversation state. Are you doing any caching in the orchestrator? Because obviously, if every round of conversation you go back and retrieve the entire conversation again, even if the only change is that you've added one entry, you could probably reduce your cost and latency by just maintaining some sort of cache.
Yeah. So at the moment, we are storing everything as a one gigantic record. But like the way that we structure our product is that we just don't know how big a conversation can grow. So it can become quite large. And yeah, so like the performance and also the like just basically the read and write latency could become an issue if they're starting to grow.
Gotcha. That does the latency problem from the size of the conversation and the conversation history, that also becomes a token problem for the model as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's
Depending
right.
on the
So
model you're using.
token wise, we're storing the raw chat, so we call the raw chat, so like sentence by sentence in database, but also on the side we're summarizing it, and we're giving the summarized version to LLM as a chat history.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that becomes more of a Cosmos DB question than specifically. But yeah, I'll be interested to know what other people are seeing done. Because what did the old Azure Chat used to use? The SK sample app that used to be maintained that used Cosmos behind the scenes, and what did they end up? What was that? Was that? Does anyone remember? Matthew, I'm looking at you and Sophia probably because we're much closer. But what was how was that?
I have to look. Yeah.
Yeah, chat copilot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Danny,
not sure.
maybe from an architectural perspective, maybe it's worth making sure you've abstracted and built yourself that chat, storage retrieval service that you can change the method if it becomes cost prohibitive. One document, because at some point, because what's the document size limit for Cosmos? It used to be a megabyte. Does anyone remember off the top of the head, Vic?
Was it the chat history sizes?
No, the Cosmos DB has a document size limit you can store inside each record, so you may run into that as a problem.
Yeah, I think I don't know, like less than like 100 kilobytes or something. Yeah, can't remember. the exact. Oh no. Chat for Cosmos, no. For Service Bus it is, but for Cosmos DB, I think, yeah, it's a bit more than that.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
2 mega. I think it might be 2
2
megabytes. But
megabyte,
anyway,
yeah.
anyway, obviously that's not necessarily an SK question. I don't know if Matthew, if the SK team does have specific guidance on conversational storage and
No. It's an area that I have felt the pain of. It just hasn't risen up in our backlog. But yeah.
Sorry, I'm just posting in a link, not the first one, the second one. Yeah, optimize query.
Hey, I've got a quick question. There was some discussion a while back about the AutoGen team moving over to leverage, and I know leveraging some of the same abstractions as SK. There was also some discussion about them moving and building on top of SK, or aligning more? Is that still in the roadmap? Are they still planning that? Or yeah,
Okay, this is a public call, right?
it is.
What do I want to say? There is a new version of AutoGen that's in the works. That is being adopted across Microsoft. So AI platform and Azure and the teams that own .NET are all involved. That new version for the .NET version is taking a dependency on Semantic Kernel. The goal is to get that. They're starting private previews in the next couple weeks or so. And then by Ignite, the plan is to release something. So if I were all of you, I would expect that development on the AutoGen version for .NET should be becoming stale and stop progressing as this new thing is built. Hopefully I didn't share anything I wasn't supposed to share.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a bit of I think mention around roadmap. Is that for the fall or something? Is that something that you, Matthew and Sophia, might be able to share when we can get that update?
We like to give ourselves moments. So the next moment is Ignite in November. So the goal is to get at least the P0s and some of the P1s completed by then.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then I just posted the link that has the full backlog so you can go through, see which items the team's working on by each of the different buckets as well in terms of roadmap of what's coming.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that, Sophia.
Is there any, are you guys looking at GraphRag and the work that's being done there, and potentially, I know that maybe that sort of is more on the memory retrieval side, but are you guys looking at integrating and doing some of the work, connecting more in with what that product is or project is doing?
Repeat that one more time.
So there's the GraphRag project, which is aiming to improve the way RAG is done. I was just wondering if you guys are planning on doing more work with them and supporting GraphRag type approaches.
Yeah.
I know that's
So
more on the memory side, but
yeah, our current focus is just getting our memory connectors working. The thing that I really like about the new versions of our connectors that are being developed is you can define a model of your data. So if it's like a product, you can have fields for like price and color and all that stuff. And then, oh, this is the description is what actually is vectorized and you can search on. What I'm excited about that is when you define a model, you can also define relationships. So you could then theoretically create your own arbitrary relationships for these records that you're pulling with vector search, which if you squint hard enough, you're like, oh, I can see how it becomes easier to develop something like GraphRag on top of semantic kernel. Um, our focus is not there yet. We just want to get something basic working, and then we'll figure out how to layer this on. Cool.
Thanks, Matthew.
Perfect. Other folks who have joined the call, I don't see any other questions in chat, but would love to hear from you if you have questions, if you have projects that you're working on that you'd like some feedback on, feel free to share with us.
Yeah, I'm nothing explicit from me today. Just dialing in to see where progress is up to, see if there's any kind of cool projects that people are working on. We're still really excited to potentially move, refactor our application into using semantic kernel, but that's capacity just isn't there at the moment. But really excited by a lot of the features that are coming, and see that a lot of the things that we're going to be working on in the coming year just almost have a dependency on, some of, in particular semantic kernel and how it works alongside prompt flow to kind of expedite some of the use cases that we want to drive out.
Yes. So if you do want to use semantic kernel with prompt flow basically lets you have like a Python node. You can dump whatever arbitrary stuff that you want. We have found, as Microsoft as a whole, fewer and fewer people are actually using the flow diagrammy stuff that is in prompt flow. The most valuable feature is the evaluations feature, right?
Yeah, sure.
And you can now use that without even using prompt flow. So you can write some like Python code in Azure AI Studio and then run evaluations on top of it. So I guess I would recommend reading up on that more and seeing if you actually need that flow state stuff. And if you don't, you might be able to save yourself some heartache.
Why do you think that there's a decrease in you're seeing a decrease in usage from the prompt flow, like the actual flow product, like the
Yeah.
graph visualization itself?
My hypothesis is customers that are using Azure products are probably professional developers and they would just want to code. The people that would use something like a flow diagram tool are probably your citizen devs or low code devs.
Yeah.
And for that, we have Copilot Studio. And so,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, the way I'm kind of seeing the market bifurcate is like you have like code first / code only, where like semantic kernel and other of the SDKs kind of lie, and then you have bot framework on the sorry, not bot framework, Copilot Studio as your low code tool. There's
Yeah.
very little oxygen for something in the middle right now. I'm sure it'll
Yeah, sure.
future, yeah, but and there'll be deeper integrations between those things in the future, but right now it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, for us, like we're really excited by the tool because it means that we can, we've kind of invested in, I guess, quote unquote prompt engineering, right? As a capability. So we've got, we're trying to get more and more people who are managing that upfront kind of requirements gathering, or design of a conversation, and put that in, everything from kind of prompting and application flow goes to the BA/prompt engineer, somebody with that kind of skill set. So they can iterate over building an application, right? A prompt flow. And then once that flow has been iterated over and fine-tuned, and they've got the prompts that are working for the use case, and they're getting a reasonable kind of output of what they want to design, then that gets pivoted over to a dev team that can then go and deploy the application. My hypothesis would be that tool. So I mean, we want to use the SDK rather than the studio, just because the studio you pay for a lot of features that user doesn't use. Like it's an expensive tool if all they're using is the GUI,
Yeah.
the drag and drop DAG. Um, so we've kind of gone down this other path where we're trying to enable them by simplifying how they can get a prompt flow SDK environment spun up on their desktop to and get with minimal training be able to use that to produce those prompt flows, and then we've got something that's then really easy to kind of package up and deploy into production. So yeah, I agree. I think the decrease the usage patterns would be due to maybe a gap in feature availability. I don't know if the way that we're going is the right way or not, but it's the most lean option available to us at the moment. So
I guess the one other thing I would add is when PromptFlow was first created, things like function calling didn't exist. So there was a huge push in the early days of AI, like, oh, we have to build all these like flow diagrams or um, prompt chains. I think that was what it was called back in the day. Because you had to like manually orchestrate every single step. With
Yep.
function calling, you can offload a lot of those decisions to the AI.
Yeah, sure.
Like you don't have to have a step that determines intent and then picks the function and then slot fills the parameter. All of that's just like one function call now. So I think that's the other reason why this is like the need for a prompt chain is becoming less and less necessary because the models are just becoming more capable to chain themselves, for lack of a better term. So as what I would say is as you empower these AI experts, make sure that whatever tool they're using ultimately does use the best capabilities of the model, including function calling. Because the way some of these tools, the way they're orchestrated, makes it easy for you to not use those things.
I agree.
Yeah, but it sort of begs the question then, right? Because what happens then is if you've got these functions, then the BA person, let's assume this person has very limited visibility into what code looks like, right? Then it still hides the implementation of those functions to this. So they would have some sort of need to have at least know what the call it the code base can do, right? So it does. I think the risk there is it does hide the implementation detail a little bit, and they would need to have quite intimate knowledge of what it can do or what those functions are, right? So it's a bit of a gray area there.
Yeah, which I think is why something like Power Platform exists. Like you have all these connectors, and as a developer, you can add new connectors, and oh, suddenly your low-code developers can see all these connectors light up, and they can read the descriptions like, oh wow, I can activate my ERP system. And you can imagine, oh, now I can build a Copilot and add this connector that connects to my company's ERP system. Because
we're trying to get we're trying to get teams away from using Power.
Oh yeah.
We've got an application that's now in prod where an entire chat backend is managed in Power Apps. It's just like, oh man, it would have been good to avoid that.
Easier ways to lead yourself to high cholesterol.
Yeah.
You don't like Power Apps?
I did. It has a great place, but
I'm like, be careful.
Similar, it has a great place. There's a large part of my team where
I worked in Power Apps for 5 years.
I am, as I said, I think there's a great place for Power Apps, and we do a lot of work for customers in the Power Apps ecosystem. But it does come with its quirks, right? And I think just that the from an enterprise perspective, obviously there are ways to manage this. I'm acutely aware of it, but there's what we think happens, and then there's reality. Sprawl is a huge problem, right? Which is not something that we're going to get around. That's the whole point of the citizen developer space. So I think that's probably my only real, like, so I said, that's the thing that gets my stress levels up, is having that just control over what is where. And yeah, cool. Like, as I said, I know there's ways to get around that, but still, there's reality.
Yeah, so I worked on the team for a couple of years as well.
I'll say I'm sorry.
No. I think it's not a power problem. I think it's a citizen developer problem, right?
Yeah,
that is, we gave them the power, and then it's like teaching your kid to drive a car too soon, right? Like, that's the choice you made.
Exactly. Were there any questions in the chat?
Just looking through, I think we've gone through most of them. I'm just looking through. Are there ones you're seeing, Matthew?
Yeah, it says, would be able to run the evaluations in prompt flow against the .NET-based semantic kernel implementation. So we've been told for a while now that prompt flow is working on like a C# runtime to support this type of thing. I've seen some of the code, so I know they're actually working on it. But the timelines keep slipping, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and say it's potentially coming someday.
It's on the roadmap.
It's on the roadmap.
I've used it.
You've used it? Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to share the too much of the details, but Vic and I think we both used. It's available internally for us to use.
Cool. It's real.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. So
in the meantime,
I can't confirm when or what or how far or roadmap, anything like that, but it does exist.
I have seen customers that are really desperate to use the evaluation feature to, like, take a node, make an API request, and get the results and pass it. It's painful. And at that point, evaluations isn't too complicated. You can look at the source. It's just like a prompt that gets run. So I could also imagine you spending a day coding it up as an integration test.
Yeah, that's sort of what we've reverted to now.
Oh.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. So there is a kind of async way of doing it, not particularly integrated into your sort of code or evaluation flow, but there is a way for you to just run or generate some JSON language, JSON-L format, and then it will give you that output, and then you just need to run it against the prompt flow to evaluate it. So based on your output from LLM, then it will generate that JSON thing, and then you'll be able to assess it against that. So yeah, been playing around in the background, but it's not obviously seamless as you would doing it inside of prompt flow UI. Let me see if I can share the link for that as well.
Well, any other questions from folks? Otherwise, we're going to end early. Cool. Sophie, should we wrap up?
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I'm not seeing anything else come in. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining for this month's APAC office hours. We really appreciate the time. And thanks, Matthew, for joining, diving into a bunch of questions here.
Perfect. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.
Thanks so much, all.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.